Have you ever noticed how some people seem to move through life with a kind of quiet momentum, while everyone else keeps hitting the same invisible wall? Not louder, not luckier, not even more talented, just consistent. And it makes you wonder, why do some people keep going every day, while the rest of us start strong, then slowly fade out? Because the truth is, most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they stop. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just one small pause at a time. One skipped morning. One, I'll start tomorrow. One quiet decision that today doesn't really matter. And before you know it, tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next year. And suddenly you're looking at your life thinking, wait, how did I end up here? Be honest for a second. Does that feel familiar? Because if it does, you're not alone. Most people live inside this strange loop. You get inspired. You decide you're going to change your life. You wake up early. You start working out. You open the book. You plan the future. And for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, you feel unstoppable. Then something small happens. You get tired. You miss one day. Life gets busy. Your motivation dips. And suddenly the voice in your head whispers something dangerous. It's fine. Just take today off. Now that sounds harmless, almost responsible. But here's the strange part. One day off rarely stays one day, because the human brain loves comfort more than progress. And once you show it the exit door, it remembers where it is. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because the people we admire the most, the ones who seem unstoppable, aren't the most motivated people on earth. In fact, most of them feel tired too. They feel doubt. They feel resistance. Sometimes they wake up and the last thing they want to do is the thing they know they should do. But they move anyway. And that's the difference. Not motivation, movement. Even when motivation disappears. Think about that for a moment. How many things in your life would look different if you had simply kept going? That business idea. That fitness goal, that skill you once wanted to master. What if the only thing missing wasn't talent, but time? Because consistency quietly compounds in ways most people never see. But wait until you hear this part. Your brain is actually designed to resist consistency, not because you're lazy, not because you lack discipline, but because your mind is wired to conserve energy. Thousands of years ago, that kept humans alive. Today, it keeps people stuck. Your brain sees effort as a threat. It whispers things like, you deserve a break. You've done enough. You can start again tomorrow. And the scary part? Those thoughts sound reasonable, almost wise. But they're not wisdom. They're escape routes. And this is the moment where most lives quietly split into two paths. On one path, people negotiate with their excuses. They wait for motivation. They wait for clarity. They wait until life feels easier, and years pass. On the other path, a small group of people make a strange decision. They stop negotiating. They decide something simple. No days off. Now that doesn't mean they work every second. It doesn't mean burnout. It doesn't mean obsession. It means something much deeper. They refuse to break the chain, because they understand a secret most people miss. Momentum is fragile, and the moment you interrupt it, your brain resets the difficulty level. It's like pushing a heavy car. The first few pushes feel impossible, but once the car starts rolling, it gets easier, then suddenly, it's moving. But stop pushing, and you're right back at the beginning. Think about your own life. How many times have you restarted the same goal? The gym, learning something new, building something meaningful. Be honest. How many day ones have you had? More than you'd like to admit? Yeah, most people have. Here's a strange question. Why do we keep restarting instead of simply continuing? Think about it for a second. Because the answer changes everything, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. But before we get there, something important happens inside the mind of someone who decides to live differently. At first, it feels uncomfortable, almost unnatural. Because when you choose no days off, you're not just changing your schedule, you're changing your identity. And your brain hates identity changes. It pushes back. Hard. That's why the first real battle isn't with the world. It's with yourself. And this next part is where most people give up. Not because they can't continue, but because they misunderstand what discipline actually feels like.
Here's the part nobody warns you about. Discipline doesn't feel powerful in the beginning. It feels inconvenient, heavy, quietly annoying. You wake up early and your brain says, "Why are we doing this again?" You sit down to work and suddenly everything else feels more important. Your phone looks interesting. The kitchen needs cleaning. Even staring at the wall somehow feels productive. It's almost funny when you notice it. Your mind becomes a professional escape artist. And this is the moment where most people assume something is wrong. They think discipline should feel inspiring, like a movie montage, like some inner fire pushing them forward. But that's not what it feels like at all. Most days, discipline feels ordinary, sometimes even boring. And that realization alone changes everything. Because the people who win in life don't rely on motivation. They normalize the boring parts. They stop waiting to feel ready. They move anyway, even when it's quiet, even when nobody notices, even when progress feels invisible. And if that thought feels slightly uncomfortable right now, that's normal. Because deep down, most of us were taught the wrong story about success. We were told that successful people wake up excited every day, that they're passionate all the time, that they're fueled by constant motivation. But that's not reality. Reality looks much simpler. They show up, again and again and again, even on the days when nothing feels magical. Let me ask you something strange. Have you ever brushed your teeth even when you didn't feel like it? Of course you have. You didn't debate it. You didn't wait for motivation. You just did it, because it's part of who you are. Now imagine if your goals worked the same way. Not dramatic, not heroic, just normal. This is where the identity shift begins. And this next realization hits people hard when they first hear it. Successful people don't push themselves harder than everyone else. They remove the decision. They stop asking, "Do I feel like it today?" Instead, the rule becomes simple. This is what I do. Every day. No debate. And something interesting starts happening when you live like this. Your brain stops negotiating, because negotiation requires options. When there are no options, the conversation ends. Now here's a thought most people never consider. What if the biggest energy drain in your life isn't the work itself, but the constant arguing in your head about whether you should do it? Think about it. How much mental energy gets wasted every day on internal debates? I should work out. I'll do it later. Maybe tomorrow. I deserve a break. Round and round the mind goes, but when the rule becomes simple, no days off, the debate disappears, and suddenly something strange happens. You actually feel lighter. Less mental noise, less friction, just action. Now wait a second. Before you start thinking this means living like a machine, there's an important twist, because no days off doesn't mean constant intensity. It means constant presence. Some days you push hard, other days you move slowly, but you never break the chain. You still show up, even if it's small, even if it's imperfect, even if it's just one tiny step forward. And here's why that matters more than people realize. Your brain tracks identity through patterns, not big moments. Patterns. If you act like someone who shows up daily, your brain eventually accepts that identity. I'm the kind of person who keeps going. But if you repeatedly stop and restart, your brain learns a different story. I'm the kind of person who quits. And that belief quietly shapes your future decisions. This is the hidden psychology of consistency. You're not just building progress, you're building evidence about who you are.
Let that sink in for a moment. Every action is a vote. Every day is a vote for the person you're becoming. So here's a quiet question most people avoid asking themselves. Right now, what identity are your daily actions voting for? Think about it honestly, because this is where things start getting real. And once people see this clearly, they often feel a strange mix of emotions, part regret, part excitement. Regret for the time lost, excitement for the time still ahead. And that emotional shift is important because it leads to a powerful realization most people never reach. You don't need a completely different life. You need a different relationship with your days. But the next challenge is even trickier, because knowing this is one thing, living it is another, and the biggest obstacle isn't laziness, it's something far more subtle, something that quietly sabotages almost everyone trying to change their life. Perfection. And this next part might completely change how you think about progress.
At some point in this journey, something quiet but powerful happens. You stop chasing motivation, and you start trusting the system. Not a complicated system, just a simple rule. Show up. Every day. No days off. And suddenly life begins to feel different. Not easier, but clearer. Because one of the heaviest burdens people carry isn't hard work. It's uncertainty. The constant question in the back of the mind. Am I doing enough? Am I falling behind? Should I be doing something else? Those questions create noise, endless mental noise. But when your rule becomes simple, that noise disappears. You already know the answer. You show up. That's it. Now here's something interesting about human psychology. Confidence doesn't come from thinking about success. It comes from evidence. Evidence that you can rely on yourself. Evidence that when things get difficult, you still move. And when you live by the no days off mindset, you collect that evidence daily. Small proof, over and over again. I did what I said I would do. That sentence is powerful, more powerful than most people realize. Because the moment you begin trusting yourself, everything changes. Your decisions become stronger. Your goals become clearer. Your doubts lose their authority. But there's another layer to this mindset that most people miss. Consistency doesn't just build results, it builds peace. Think about it. How many people lie awake at night feeling guilty about what they didn't do that day? The workout they skipped, the work they postponed, the opportunity they ignored. That quiet guilt follows them. But when you show up daily, that weight disappears. Even if progress is slow, even if the results aren't visible yet, you still know something important. You did your part today. And strangely enough, that knowledge brings a sense of calm, a quiet confidence. Now here's the paradox. The people who appear the most disciplined from the outside often feel the most free on the inside, because their decisions are simple. They don't waste time negotiating with themselves. They don't rely on mood. They rely on standards, and standards create stability. Now let's pause for a moment. Imagine your life 1 year from now. 2 possible futures. In the first one, nothing really changes. You still wait for motivation. You still restart goals every few weeks. You still wonder why things never stick. In the second future, you follow one simple rule. No days off. Not extreme effort, not burnout. Just daily movement. Small steps. Consistent steps. Day after day. Which version of you do you think looks different after 12 months? The answer is obvious. But here's the surprising part. The difference between those two lives isn't talent. It isn't intelligence. It isn't luck. It's a decision about how you treat your days. Because life rarely changes through dramatic moments. It changes through repeated, ordinary ones. A morning routine, a short workout, a few focused hours, a promise kept, again, and again, and again. Until suddenly, the person you once imagined becoming starts to appear. Not overnight, but gradually, quietly. And that's the real power behind the no days off philosophy. It isn't about grinding yourself into exhaustion. It's about protecting your momentum, protecting the small, daily actions that compound into something extraordinary. And once you understand that, discipline stops feeling like punishment. It starts feeling like direction, like control, like freedom. So the next time you wake up and that voice in your head whispers, "Maybe today doesn't matter," remember something simple. Today always matters, because every single day casts a vote for the person you're becoming. And if this idea resonated with you, if part of this journey sounded a little too familiar, don't just let the thought pass. Sit with it. Think about the direction your days are currently moving, and decide what kind of momentum you want to build from here. Because sometimes the biggest life change doesn't come from a massive decision. It comes from a simple one. The decision to keep showing up. Every day. No days off.